Madam Chair, we are now live.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And due to the COVID-19 emergency declaration, this meeting of Community Affairs and Planning Committee is being held electronically and live streamed on the town's website. All members of council are in attendance are participating by audio video teleconference, and town staff are available throughout the meeting if council members have any questions on the agenda. For members of public watching from home, please bear with us if we encounter any technical difficulties throughout the meeting. I will now call this meeting to order. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the regular minutes of November the 8th. Regional Council Sterling Lee and Councillor Bauer. Our only agenda is coming up now.
Point of order, Chair. We have to vote on that, don't we?
Oh, sorry, my bad. All in favor? Thank you. Sorry about that. Hold on, I'm missing my notes. So just to go through the format of the evening, it'll be the typical format for the public meeting. First, we'll receive the presentation from staff, followed by Q&A from council members, and then we will open it up the meeting to the delegations from the public in attendance, after which we'll hear any comments from the applicant. So Bruno, I believe you are the one doing the presentation. Are you there with us?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Bruno Scopacasa, Senior Planner for the Town of Ajax. Tonight's presentation will provide an overview of staff's report for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications submitted by Chieftain Development Corporation, an amendment to draft approved plan of subdivision application submitted by Finch Rose Development Corporation for lands located southeast of the Bailey Street East and Shoal Point Road intersection in the Town of Ajax. The presentation will offer an overview of the site and its context, a summary of the proposals, land use planning context, and staff recommendation of the applications. The development applications are for the subject lands outlined in red on this image. The Finch Rose lands, located on the east side of Shoal Point Road, approximately 110 meters south of Bailey Street East, has a total area of approximately 2 hectares or 4.9 acres. The Chieftain lands, located immediately east and north of the Finch Rose lands, has a total area of approximately 3.6 hectares or 8.8 acres. The subject lands are surrounded by the following land uses. To the north is the Leiter family farmhouse, barns, and other associated outbuildings. Further north is Bailey Street East. North of Bailey Street East are lands designated environmental protection owned by the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority and the Atlas Logistics Distribution Warehouse. To the east is the Daste Employment and Residential Subdivision, which is under construction. Further east is the Ballymore Residential Subdivision, a place of worship, and Audley Road South. To the south are vacant lands owned by Magnum Opus, which are draft approved for low and medium density residential uses, a community park, and an elementary school. Further south are lands designated environmental protection. Immediately to the west is Shoal Point Road. Further west is the Lebovic Residential Condominium and Subdivision Development. Further west are lands designated environmental protection associated with the Carruthers Creek. The proposed Finch Rose amending draft plan of subdivision consists of 2 residential development blocks that will contain 12 two-story street townhouse dwelling units fronting the future extension of Lenny Street, a 1.34 hectare medium-density residential block for a future condominium townhouse development, a 0.16 hectare block for a stormwater management pond, and various remnant future development blocks and 1-foot reserves along Shoal Point Road. As mentioned, the plan provides for an extension of Lenny Street to Shoal Point Road. The proposed plan has been amended from the 2014 draft approved plan in the following manner. A slight shift south of blocks 1 and 2, the future extension of Lenny Street, and block 5. The change in use of block 4 from a future prestige employment block to a stormwater management pond, and the introduction of 2 1-foot reserves along Shoal Point Road. These amendments are designed to better integrate the Finch Rose plan with the adjacent Chieftain plan. The proposed Chieftain plan consists of 2 residential development blocks for 12 two-story street townhouse dwelling units fronting onto the extension of Lenny Street, a 1.34 hectare medium-density residential block for a future condominium townhouse development, 2 future development blocks consisting of 1.3 hectares, a 0.43 hectare block for a stormwater management pond, and the extension of Lenny Street. The medium-density residential blocks within each plan are proposed to be developed collectively through the future submission of a site plan and draft plan of condominium applications. These blocks will consist of 120 block townhouse dwelling units fronting onto a private crescent condominium road with access onto Clayton Road. Each unit is proposed to have 2 parking spaces. The future development is proposed to provide a combination of on-street and dedicated off-street visitor parking. The conceptual elevations for the proposed townhouse units within the condominium block and those fronting the future extension of Lenny Street provided on this image will range between 2 and 3 stories in height. The lands highlighted in light green, currently designated prestige employment under the town's official plan, are subject to a conversion request under the Municipal Comprehensive Review of the Durham Region Official Plan. The region is anticipating that the Municipal Comprehensive Review of its official plan to be completed in July 2022. Regardless of the outcome of this request, the future development of this block will be subject to site plan approval. The lands highlighted in blue are proposed to accommodate a stormwater management facility that will service the Finch Rose, Chieftain, and Daste subdivision lands. The westerly extension of Lenny Street to Shoal Point Road, which is designated a collector road, will connect Audley Road south to Shoal Point Road. The Town of Ajax official plan designates the northern portions of the subject land's prestige employment, identified in dark blue on this image, and the southern portions medium-density residential, identified in orange on this image. The prestige employment designation permits uses such as, but not limited to, business and professional offices, manufacturing and wholly enclosed buildings, warehousing, distribution centers, financial institutions, and restaurants. Permitted uses within the medium-density residential designation include duplex dwellings, block townhouses, street townhouses, stacked townhouses, attached housing, walk-up apartments, and other forms of moderately scaled housing within a density range of 30 to 75 units per net hectare. The Finch Rose development proposes a residential density of 44.72 units per net hectare, while the Chieftain development proposes a residential density of 44 0.17 units per net hectare. The proposed developments conform to the policies of the town's official plan. The northern portion of the Finch Rose lands are currently zoned Prestige Employment Zone, or PE, which permits the development of employment type uses such as office, personal services, warehousing, and restaurant uses, to name a few. A holding provision is associated with these lands because of the limited development potential based on the configuration and size of these PE lands. The southern portion is zoned Residential 3 Zone, or R3, which permits the development of street townhouses. The larger central portion of these lands are zoned Residential Multiple 6 Zone, or RM6, which permits multiple attached dwellings, such as block townhouse units being proposed within a future condominium form. The Finch Rose lands are also governed by Exception 176, which provides site-specific development standards for the lands zoned RM6 and R3. The Chieftain lands are entirely zoned Agricultural Zone, or A. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment fundamentally extends the RM6 zone and the R3 zone uses and development standards under Exception 176 that govern the Finch Rose lands to include the Chieftain lands to facilitate the future development of the street townhouses and condominium townhouse units in a cohesive manner over the two plans. In addition, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone lands that will support the future stormwater management facility that will serve area developments. The proposed implementing zoning bylaw for both the Finch Rose and Chieftain lands is provided in Attachment 1 of the staff report. Staff have reviewed the submitted applications and are of the opinion that the proposed developments are planned appropriately and provide for residential intensification in a compact urban form that is pedestrian and transit supportive. The proposed developments are consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement and conform to the policies of the growth plan and both the region and town official plans. Therefore, staff are recommending approval of the development applications, subject to the recommendations provided in the staff report. Scott Waterhouse, Planning Manager at GHD, and David Brand, property owner, are in attendance to address the development proposals. That concludes my presentation. I am happy to respond to any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. I have, first of all, I have Councillor Tyler Morin, and then I have Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To you, Mr. Cook, to Bruno. I just want to get clarity for those listening. You said it was 12 townhome units on the one property and 120 for a total of 132 that are being built first. Is that correct?
So there are 12 street townhouses in each draft plan. And then the medium density residential block over the two plans, the proposals for 120 block townhouses within a condominium development.
So maybe can you clarify how many units are being built? You know, pending approval, of course, but for the first draft, like the first run.
144.
Okay, 144 units. Okay. The other, if I may, Madam Chair, the conversion request, just for clarity, anybody listening, is the same as the zoning change request, correct? It's just the language there. I heard you say conversion request.
The conversion request is for the northern block that was highlighted in green on the Chieftain plan, those lands are not being rezoned through this application. They are going to remain as agricultural the way they're currently zoned.
Okay. And, okay, thank you. And my final question, is there any environmentally sensitive lands that were potentially encroaching on, or anything in that area that's being addressed? Again, if you could just clarify for that.
There are environmentally sensitive lands on the west side of Shoal Point Road, but these developments will not directly impact that environmentally sensitive lands, other than the storm pond will outlet into the Carruthers Creek, and there will be some restoration work required because of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Scopacasa. First of all, are these the same company? They must be.
They are essentially owned by the same entity. They're just under different company names.
Okay. I don't think I've ever seen an application across a couple of properties with different names. I mean, it's an odd type thing. I'm just wondering, let me get to my questions here. So my first issue with this is, I mean, they've got this lands and they bought the 8-point-something acres from the Latners, and they've chosen almost the entirety of the employment portion section of this for the stormwater pond, which may conform to the official plan according to what I've read here in this report, but it doesn't really conform to my thoughts on employment lands. Can you speak to that, please? I mean, there's lots of areas on this land where that stormwater management pond could go.
Sure. Technically, based on the engineering design for the stormwater management across the 3 subdivisions, not only Finch Rose, Chieftain, but also the Daste subdivision that is further east. This is the only logical and technical location where the stormwater management pond can function properly, because it needs an outlet to the Carruthers Creek. So this is the only logical and practical location for the stormwater management pond to be located.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's been discussed with the region, because they had the same concerns about employment lands being occupied by a stormwater management facility. But after reading and analyzing the technical design and the requirements for the storm pond, they also realized that this was the only logical and feasible location.
Fair enough. But at the same time, this same proponent has an application, was it CNR 09, I think it is, at the region right now for full conversion of the remainder of those lands that are zoned employment. Now, I know Ajax Council has supported a recommendation to allow a grocery store, but what sort of assurance do we have that the next thing we have come towards this is an application to, for another 50 townhouses on that employment land?
Perhaps I can answer that question. There will be a report going tomorrow to the Region's Planning and Economic Development Committee. Their recommendation for that particular property, the northern part of the Chieftain lands, the prestige employment, is to maintain the prestige employment designation, but to allow for retail uses such as a grocery store.
Okay, so they would have to go through, I'll make you a bet today that the next municipal comprehensive review, we potentially see the same application on these lands. I mean, I'll be asking the proponent when they come ahead, what sort of assurance do we have that they are going to go ahead with the employment? Because it appears to me, based on that application, because they didn't ask for a grocery store, they asked for a complete rezoning or conversion of those lands to the region. And I mean, I would like some assurance that that isn't their ultimate intent. Is there a way that I mean, we're sending our comments. I absolutely do not expect this to be converted at the planning meeting at the region tomorrow. I do expect the allowance for a grocery store. I guess my next question, assuming the Envision Durham process goes ahead and we do allow the usage of the grocery store, and this goes through the province and potentially gets approved, if at that time, through our zoning bylaws, these lands will stay agricultural until then, and then will we be able, through our zoning bylaws, able to stipulate exactly that these can only be a grocery store and cannot be converted for any other uses under this, Ms. Ennis?
Yes, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, to Mayor Collier. If it does get approved by the province and is implemented in the regional official plan, we would first have to update our official plan, and it would be an area-specific policy to allow for the additional retail uses within the prestige employment designation specifically on that parcel. And at that point, then we would update our zoning bylaw. The alternate is once it is in the regional official plan, the applicant can also undertake their own official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment if they don't want to wait for the town's processes.
Okay, they can accelerate the process. That's fine. The remaining lands that I'm referring to the east of the stormwater pond and north of block 5, I think it is, on the Chieftain piece, is that entirely would be made up of a potential grocery store, or is that expected to be a number of different buildings? I don't know the exact size of that.
Based on the region's report, the region is not recommending conversion for those other parcels. It is simply for the prestige employment piece on the Chieftain lands and nothing else to the east of that.
Okay, sorry. Do we have a map that we can put up? I'm not clear. We've got the Chieftain lands and we've got that piece to the west where the stormwater pond is scheduled to go. But the entire east, that other piece, I think it's a 1.78 acre piece. I'm talking about that piece specifically. So when we do the potential rezoning at the region or the conversion approval at the region, there it is. So if you got the first line under the Latner property, the horizontal line, the second line, if you extend that all the way across, that's what outlines that 1.7 acres of the Chieftain lands, where they currently have the conversion request. Of that 1.7 acres, if the region does approve the grocery store allowance, is there a way to put it only, like, will the grocery store take up that whole piece? I guess is what I'm asking.
Right, through you, Madam Chair. Based on the region's report and what they've identified in their mapping for their recommendation, they are only recommending that northern portion of the Chieftain lands that is designated prestige employment to have like a special policy exemption to allow for the retail. Everything east of the Chieftain property that is prestige employment is not being recommended for conversion in the region's report.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm still not understanding. So of the 1.7 acres, they're only recommending a small piece of that. Is that what you're saying?
They are only, of the 1.7 acres.
Which is that whole sort of square. I wish we had something I could draw on the screen. Be easier, but.
They are only recommending, and the square within the red boundary of the Chieftain lands that is prestige employment, that is the only parcel that they are recommending.
Okay, so this is, okay, I get that. What I'm asking is there a way that we could only, and I'm getting a little bit off topic from this application, but I mean, allowing that use over the entire property, if the grocery store that we're talking about would only take up a part of that square at the top, is there a way to only allow the conversion of that part and not the entire parcel?
You can ask that of regional staff if they are recommending conversion, or well, if they're recommending additional permitted uses there, that by being retail, they would apply it to the entire site.
Okay. Moving on to block 7. I'm not understanding block 7. It looks like it's at the bottom in the middle of the two properties. I'm not understanding why that would be segregated out for a special zoning in this. Right at the bottom, sort of straddling the border between Finch Road and Chieftain, just north of the new road. Block 7 it's called. I'm not understanding
So
why.
there are two part blocks
Okay.
that are at the in the Finch Rose plan. It's labeled here as part lot block 6, and in the Chieftain plan it's labeled as part lot block 7. So
Okay.
these are two remnant pieces. When you lot out the 12 townhouses in each plan, when the two plans come together, there are two remnant pieces that when they're pieced together will make an additional lot between the two plans.
Okay. Wouldn't that have been a lot easier to just make the lots like a foot bigger, each of them, and not have that remnant piece? I guess economically, that's not the way they want to go.
We can't magically shift property lines, unfortunately, because they're owned by technically by two separate companies.
I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about making the lots themselves a little bit bigger, this divided lots for the townhouses, rather than have one straddling the line. Again, this is a bit of an odd application, being two different pieces on one. Let me just find my next. The employment lands are remaining agriculture. I just wonder why we're not rezoning those now along with this. If they're prestige employment today, why aren't we zoning them prestige employment? We know that's the use, and I don't see us changing that use.
Well, the application doesn't call for it. It's not being requested. Typically, the town does not have the authority to rezone someone else's property. So if the request comes in without that as an ask, we can't, force it upon them. I think the reason why it's not being proposed, that a zoning change is not being proposed, is because likely the applicant is waiting for official outcome of the MCR.
Right. I assume the same thing as well. I was wondering why we couldn't do, I guess, so we can't do a town initiated. We have to wait till the applicant, even though it's in our official plan, SPE, we have to wait for the proponent to initiate.
That's correct.
All right, those are my questions, Madam Chair. I'll save the rest for when the proponent comes forward. Thank you, Mr. Scopacasa.
You're welcome.
And
Thank
Steph.
you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Bruno. Just a quick question about the March open house. If I remember correctly, the main concern for the residents who attended that was the traffic. And I think the solution of, they seem to respond positively to the extension of Lenny Street, but can you just speak to sort of all of the changes that will happen over time as far as the traffic and the roads over there and Shoal Point, etc.?
Well, I guess the most recent change has been the construction of Clayton Road through the neighboring Daste subdivision. So that's created another north-south road accessed off of Bailey Street that, once connected to the extension of Lenny Street, will provide another option for residents, not only to go east-west from Shoal Point to Audley or vice versa, but also another option other than Shoal Point or Audley to get up to Bailey through Clayton Clayton Road. In the future, with the development of Magnum Opus, for another east-west connection will be incorporated further south between Shoal Point and Audley with the extension of Denny Street, which is a street in the John Body subdivision. It will be extended further west to connect with Shoal Point Road at Salt Drive. And Clayton Road will be extended south into the Magnum Opus plan. And then with the Magnum Opus development, it will trigger the need for improvements at the Shoal Point and Bailey intersection. Those lights are currently temporary lights, and the intersection is designed at a temporary standard, regional standard. So those lights would be upgraded to permanent intersection design and lights, along with other improvements, including double left turn lane when you're approaching Bailey Street from the south end of Shoal Point. There'll be a dual left turn lanes to go west onto Bailey Street. There will also be a taper lane to turn right onto Shoal Point Road if you're traveling east on Bailey Street. So those are the major improvements, road improvements that will occur. And they are predominantly triggered by the Magnum Opus development.
Thank you for that. So do we have an estimated time frame for that? When Magnum Opus will build, I guess?
No, they received draft approval a few years ago, and it's been silent ever since. So we're not aware what their desire is, if they are truly going to move forward with that development, or if they're, looking to sell the property. It's been silent from that developer since their draft approval.
Thank you. Okay, and I guess my last question would be, what is the timing for this development?
Well, the medium density blocks still require to go through site plan approval. So that's a little ways off. The developer also needs to clear conditions of draft approval, which are attached to the staff report. And once all those conditions are cleared, they'd be in the position to register the two draft plans, which then create the lots and blocks that you see here. And that would permit them to at least pull building permits on the 12 townhouses that front onto Lenny Street at the south end of both plans.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions for now. Thank you, Chair.
Did you want to ask it about the deferring?
I was going to.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, yes, I will leave that for the mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Dyes after Mayor Collier, or Mayor Collier, since you've gone, can I have?
Yeah, no, I'm fine at the end. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lenny Street is, I guess, going to connect obviously to Magnum Opus and go all the way over to Audley. Is that correct? Through the different developments?
Yeah, so Lenny Street currently exists in the John Body subdivision.
Right.
So it's already connected to Audley Road South. So it will progress west through the Daste subdivision, which is under construction, and then through the Chieftain plan and the Finch Rose plan to connect to Shoal Point Road.
Have there been discussions on any type of traffic calming installations on this section of road going east and west?
Not at this stage.
So that comes through the site plan then?
That would likely come through the detailed design of the engineering for the subdivisions.
Is that something that will be considered, given it's pretty straight across? I can see some problems, especially with the park there as well in the magnum opus corner.
Yeah, yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. Just thank you for letting me back in. I had thought of a couple of things, and Councillor Bauer made a good point. These lands have been sitting for a long time. Mr. Scopacasa, the application was submitted, I don't know when. If council doesn't make a decision on this today, and pending the planning meeting tomorrow and the Envision Durham application on the other lands, I would like to know those details first. Does that put us in a position of potentially going to the land tribunal? Is there a deadline here?
We're beyond the statutory requirements for a decision, so the applicant would be in a position to appeal based on those timelines.
Okay, but they're already in that position.
Correct.
Okay, so this council, whether it happens now or in a couple of months, really doesn't make much difference at this point.
Maybe not to staff, but I'm sure it does to the applicant.
No, but that's fine. It's not going to jeopardize our position. We're already in a position where they can appeal to the land tribunal.
Correct.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just wondering then, because it seems that there are some unanswered questions or things that are being waited for or should be decided soon. Is this something maybe that we should defer to a later date to decide when we have all that information?
If it's okay, before you do that.
Maybe we should wait until the proponent speaks and then we can decide. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone from the public here to speak?
Madam Chair, no members of the public registered to speak at tonight's meeting.
Okay, at this point, could we have the proponent come on? Hi, how are you?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of council.
Oh, did you have some comments to some of these questions?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. First off, Scott Waterhouse, planner with GHD on behalf of the applicant. And also in attendance tonight is the applicant, Mr. David Brand, representing both Finch Rose and Chieftain corporations. Madam Chair, yes, happy to answer any specific questions that committee may have. I know there was a few discussion points or questions earlier, and I know there was obviously discussion about possible deferral. I think the only thing that I would add, and Mr. Brand may very well speak to this as well, is yes, to the discussion tonight, there is a regional committee meeting tomorrow dealing with the conversion request for the Chieftain parcel. And yes, as mentioned, staff at the region are recommending the addition of a grocery store as applicable to the Chieftain parcel to its conversion request. And as mentioned, the intention would be to retain the prestige employment designation in the regional official plan, but also add permission for a grocery store. And I think the only thing I would say to the question of deferral is, and to the question of why not zoning those lands now, is we were waiting for the outcome of the regional official plan review and the MCR process and determination by the region on that matter. And whether the lands are zoned prestige employment now to align with the current regional official plan, regardless, they will need a zoning amendment in the future to potentially add a grocery store, if that is the outcome at tomorrow's regional committee meeting and the subsequent regional council meeting. So in either scenario, there is a zoning amendment required for that block. that potentially will have permissions for a grocery store. But that's the background on why it wasn't being proposed to be rezoned now, pending the outcome of that that official plan review process. So just in terms of a planning process, that would be my comment to that question. And I'm sure the applicant would respectfully request that a decision by committee in line with staff's recommendation at tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Is there any questions to the proponent from council? Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Waterhouse, perhaps Mr. Brand, if you want to speak on this. I'm very concerned about the conversion request that's in front of the region right now on the employment lands. I would like to know, I would like a commitment that, you know, should we approve this today, or should we approve this at a future date, that your intent is to honor our official plan and the prestige employment and develop those lands for what they're intended as a grocery store or as other prestige employment uses.
Can I speak to this, Scott?
Of course.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and other members of council, it is our firm intention to develop the prestige employment lands as prestige employment. We made a request for an MCR conversion. It was not recommended, and we will respect that. We requested, in addition to the prestige employment uses, for some shopping, a shopping store or a grocery store, because it's proven to be needed in the area. It's underserviced, and under the present prestige employment uses, that would have not been permitted. Hopefully, the regional council supports the inclusion of a food store, and the town supports the inclusion of a food store, because we fully intend to develop the site with a food use included in conjunction with the prestige employment lands. I'm not coming back or will seek any change. And it's a commitment. I understand, Mr. Mayor, how adamant you are about seeing jobs created, and that's what we intend to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brand, for that, because the CNR 09 application to the region proposed use for the conversion request was for 85 townhouse dwelling units in a stormwater facility.
Mr. Mayor, you're correct. The opportunity was put out there under the MCR. We made the application, and recognizing and respecting your wishes and the town's wishes, we only requested a food use permission. And that's the way the site's going to be developed. You have my commitment.
Fair enough. Thank you. And I do appreciate that, because you are correct. This area is very underutilized for that. There is a lot of development, and those uses are very much needed for the residents there. So I do appreciate that. I will take your word on that. What about time frame? Should this go through the Envision Durham process and say approved sometime over the next year from the province, when would you expect to be moving forward with those developments? I know the residential will go fairly quickly, but with the employment piece?
Mr. Mayor, I intend to move as quickly as I can. The application on the future development block was deferred, hoping that we could get some additional uses through the MCR process. I would file an application today with the permitted uses, but I have been advised by Mr. Waterhouse to see what happens with regards to the regional amendment and the town's adoption. Once I get the green light, I would have an application in as soon as next week.
Okay. So do you have a problem, sir, with, because I would like to also, I concur with Mr. Waterhouse, I would like to also see what the outcome is at the region. I will definitely be at the meeting tomorrow, as long with Councillor Lee. Although I'm not a committee member, I will be speaking to some of these. And I would like to see that before I make the decision. Do you have a problem, sir, considering this is a bit of a dated file anyway, that if we were to defer this until after that meeting took place and then dealt with it at the next council meeting, which is in, well, it's after tomorrow.
Mr. Mayor and other members of council, we've been very patient, you know, and I'm certain you know that this application is more than 2 years old.
Mhm.
And we want to develop, we have built Clayton, we built Lenny, we're going to build the extension of Lenny out to Shoal Point. We're anxious to move this forward. And I was hoping tonight the application would be dealt with. And depending on the outcome of regional council, if I can file an application for prestige employment zoning that will permit a food store, I would be contravening the OPA, the official plan right now. And, you know, I didn't want to file an application and an OPA when the additional use was going to be accommodated. I was just following protocol, Mr. Mayor.
Understood. What I'm talking about is, instead of council making, and of course, this is just me, I'm up to the will of council. I'm only one vote, but whether this decision is made tonight or not, it would not be ratified till the council meeting December 13th anyway. So there would be no delay. It would just be a matter of making both the decision and the ratification at the meeting next Monday on the 13th.
I think
allow us all to see the results of tomorrow. And
Mr. Mayor and to other members of council, if regional council doesn't approve the recommendation, I'm going to build this as prestige employment. I fully intend to do that in conjunction. Hopefully next year, mid next year, I can move forward on the Das Bailey, which is 5 acres. And we intend to do multi-tenant and industrial. And I would just continue to use that same use across the street. I was just hoping I could accommodate the community with a food store. And if that is, and that receives support, that is what I intend to do here. I had a concern, and Scott spoke to both the regional representatives, that I didn't just want a food store here. I wanted to do additional prestige employment uses and complement it with a food store as within the mix. So one way or the other, this is going for prestige employment uses. The only thing is, you know, I would hope the recognition is there that the community is underserviced in this area, and I would be able to address those needs. But if there's no food store, I intend to do it as full prestige employment. That shouldn't be a doubt in anybody's mind.
okay. Well, I do appreciate those words, and we'll take it your word. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the proponent tonight? Seeing none, thank you very much for your patience with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there, let me see where I am here. Is there any other comments by council at this point? No? So we do have a motion, if I can find it in my thing. Here it is. We do have a motion coming forward that PDS-2021-49, amendment to the draft approval plan of subdivision SA 2005-06, Finch Rose Development Corporation, lands located on the east side of Shoal Point. The recommendation, I need a mover and a seconder for this. Moved by, sorry, I didn't see the hand, which one went up first, but moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Mayor Collier.
Yep.
Is there any discussions to these recommendations? Mayor Collier.
Just very quickly, Chair, and I do thank the proponent from being so truthful on this. Originally, I was thinking, I would want to defer this, but either way, this decision will not be ratified till next Monday at council, which will give us time to see. And given our council's position supporting the use of allowable use of a grocery store on these lands, and given the region has concurred in the report that's coming towards planning tomorrow, I don't see any reason why this wouldn't happen. I'd be shocked if it didn't. So I think I feel comfortable with that, and I do appreciate Mr. Brand being so forward with his reassurance. And trust me, I will. This is recorded. I will hold you to that. So I will just leave it there. Thank you. I will be supporting this.
Sir, any other comments to this motion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask all in favor. Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. And I now need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Khan, Councillor Tyler Morin, is there any questions or debate around adjournment? All in favor? Sounds good. Thanks very much.
Excellent.